in so large numbers, circulated among the people. I was just out of school when I came in contact with this kind of how the Britishers are trying to undermine our confidence in ourselves. In fact, these days, when people ask me, what is the biggest contribution the NDA government has made during the 6 years that it was in office? Some of our colleagues say that it was the highways constructed. Others say that it was the communication system that was spread. Others say that it was the fact that we make India a nuclear power. That was the biggest contribution. I have always said that the biggest contribution that our government was able to make during those 6 years was to instill in the average Indian, whether he lives in India or abroad, a sense of pride in his future. The confidence that India can be among the major powers of the world. And therefore it is that we gave to the people this particular slogan that by 2020, India should be a fully developed country. And what we had in mind is what has been done in Gujarat. That in 2020, every single village of the country should have water, should have electricity, should have pakka roads. All these things were in our mind. And so that is the biggest. Of course, this is true, that the Pokhran Nirnay, the Pokhran decision was a major contributory to creating this confidence. Reference was made even to the Indo-US Pact. And Cho said that if we were there, we would have done the same thing. I'm sorry, we would not have agreed to this kind of pact. I can tell you that. In fact, an American spokesman once said during this period, what we were not able to get from the NDA government, we have been able to get from these people. Because all along, after all along, we have never been in favor of India signing the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty. Because if we had signed it, say, 10 years ago, there would have been no Pokhran. We could not have done it. And when I criticized this pact in Parliament, in the Lok Sabha also, I said the same thing to Dr. Manmohan Singh. I said that if we had signed this pact earlier, Mrs. Gandhi could not have done Pokhran 1. Vajpayee could not have done Pokhran 2. And after signing this, Manmohan Singh or anyone who follows will not be able to do Pokhran 3 or Pokhran 4 unless he violates this act. And I said, I'm not very surprised, because I remember that when Vajpayee went in for his Pokhran blast, the world cheered. And NRIs the world over phoned to me, wrote to me, sent emails to me that we felt as if our height has been increased by 6 inches. Whereas here in Parliament, just go through the parliamentary records and you would find the present Prime Minister and the then leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha condemning the Pokhran blast and saying what we are doing is going to create problems for us on the economic front, because the American sanctions that would be imposed on us would cripple our economy. So I'm not surprised. But I strongly oppose this particular decision that they have taken. Creating good relations with America is desirable. We did it. But just as normalizing relations with Pakistan is desirable, but the question is at what cost? Vajpayee undertook a bus journey to normalize relations. Went to Lahore to meet the then Prime Minister. And for a time it seemed that something is going to come out of it. In the meanwhile, we had Kargil and a coup in Islamabad. The then elected Prime Minister was externed from the country, thrown out. A military chief took over. I am not revealing any secret, but it is not something commonly known that I had a discussion with the Prime Minister after that, and I said that this journey has not succeeded because of General Musharraf, who has now taken charge. Now why not invite him? We don't know him. He's an army man. He's not a political person. Maybe he would be able to see the wisdom of having a normal relationship between India and Pakistan. And a normal relationship can come about only if he abandons the path of cross-border terrorism. He might realize that. And so it was that this meeting at Agra took place. A meeting that yielded nothing. A meeting that yielded nothing because he was not willing to accept that there is anything like terrorism. He said what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir is a freedom struggle of the people of Jammu and Kashmir against India, and therefore lives are being lost. He said, all right. He accepted terrorism. He accepted that there was terrorism 4 years later, 3 years later, when at Islamabad, Vajpayee ji went for the SAARC conference, and there a joint statement was issued by Vajpayee ji and General Musharraf, in which General Musharraf assured India that I will not allow any part of Pakistan or any part of territory in the possession of Pakistan to be used against India through terrorism. I will not allow terrorism. It's then that an agreement was signed and a dialogue started. Now, but let me tell you that terrorism has not ended. No. And this is not what I am saying. This is what the Prime Minister, present Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh said immediately after the 7/11 blast in Mumbai. After in the train simultaneously, there were so many blasts, 200 persons, innocent persons, lost their lives. And immediately the Prime Minister said, this is Pakistan's handiwork. Shortly thereafter, the government also came out with news that we have got concrete proof to show that Pakistan has been behind it. Even now, today here, someone told me about an engineer in Assam kidnapped a few days back. What's his name? Ganeshan. And ransom being asked for it. And not only that, one engineer from Tamil Nadu, but particularly from Bihar and other parts of northern India, people who are there, 70 persons have been killed by Ulfa. 70 persons in the last few days. And it is only because of the mishandling of this government. In fact, this afternoon when I spoke to my party colleagues, I said this government's two biggest failures have been, firstly, on the price front, where every single item of daily use by the common man has become so costly. See how during the 6 years that we were in office, we were able to hold the price rise successfully. And the second failure is the failure on the internal security front. One doesn't know what will happen. One doesn't know absolutely. And to think in terms of joint mechanism to fight terrorism. Our Cho made fun. He said it's like Cho and Karunanidhi having joint control of the temple. Huh? Temple. I would say it's like the CIA chief and Bin Laden joining hands to find out who are the guilty in the 9/11. This is no way. This is no way. And I was telling you about kite flying in Gujarat. And I'll tell you an interesting example here. About the same time in Lahore, there also there is a lot of kite flying. And when the general was there, General Zia, he started a campaign, Zia-ul Haq. He started a campaign for Islamization of Pakistan and said that these Hindu practices of kite flying must go. And therefore, no one in Lahore kite flying should fly a kite, and kite flying should be banned. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And kite flying still goes on. In fact, day before yesterday, I saw a news item in a Hindi paper. I'll find out what's the fact about it. It was said that at Katas Raj, the temple which I was invited to inaugurate reconstruction of those ruins at Katas Raj this year, government has decided to hold Shivratri function. I said, very good. I was telling you about my Swarna Jayanti Rath Yatra, the one that I undertook in 1997. And I drew up a list of all those patriots, all those martyrs, all those heroes who had contributed to India's freedom 50 years earlier. And here in Tamil Nadu, from place to place, what I saw, what I was told. In fact, I visited Tirunelveli and saw that fort where Kattaboman, he lost his life. Then I realized that we in the north often feel that the first war of independence was undertaken in 1857. And this is the 150th year of that war of independence that is being observed. Savarkar wrote an excellent book on that. But Kattaboman was even before that. Perhaps that's the only film that I have seen in Tamil. Veer Pandya Kattaboman. And when I met Shivaji Ganeshan in the Rajya Sabha, I complimented him for that. And I said that that's the only Tamil film that I have seen. And I was greatly impressed. Then I started finding out how did he become Shivaji. Shivaji isn't a common name here. Then I discovered that Shivaji name was given to him by Periyar. Now our impression about Periyar is quite different. But it was Periyar who gave him that name. Not because of the film, but because of a play in which he had enacted the role of Shivaji. If I am right, that play's name was Shivaji Kanda Hindu Samrajyam. And for Periyar to regard Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj as such a hero as to name Ganeshana after him, what does this show? That there may be regional diversities, but there are strains, there are strings, there are things that bind us together. After all, we may know many poets, but those who know our Tamilian poet, whose verse was quoted by Vajpayee also when he first became Prime Minister, our Subramanyam Bharati. How much it inspires everyone in the country. He may belong to Tamil Nadu. He may have written in Tamil only, just as Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore wrote in Bengali only. But what he wrote about Shivaji is no different from the feeling that Periyar had in his mind. And Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore paid the following tribute to Shivaji. In what far-off country, upon what obscure day, know not now, seated in the gloom of some Maratha mountain wood, O King Shivaji, lighting thy brow like a lightning flash, this thought descended. What thought descended in the poet's mind? Into one virtuous rule, this divided, broken, distracted India I shall bind. Why did a warrior king from Maharashtra have this impact on a Tamilian on the one hand, on a Bengali on the other? It's because both thought alike in patriotic terms about the whole country and thought that Shivaji was the person who fought for India's Swaraj and Swabhiman. Though I must confess that it is the Cho's article in the India Today of 2000, when they published their 25th anniversary number, that enlightened me, because otherwise I had nothing but prejudice about Periyar. But when I read that, I was surprised. And as he himself has said in his article, there are a lot of contradictions in him. How many in the north would be knowing that he himself was not a Tamilian? He was a Kannadiga. And he said to the Tamilians, you cannot govern, you do not know anything. Your language is a barbaric language. And yet, because of his civility, because of his commitment to social reform, he was able to earn respect for himself. But it is his Cho's words again, that he was admired as a singer, but his song was forgotten. It's remarkable, really. And, pardon? It's like a media man who is interested in politics. I have had many experiences of this kind, where nothing else is reported except the 2 sentences I say on politics. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. Because so far as UP elections are concerned, many of my colleagues who had come to Lucknow would have noticed that the rally that was organized there on the last day of the conference was something unprecedented. Unprecedented in the history of that place. And a rally of that size, a mammoth rally of that size, can never be the result of just party workers putting in exertions, units putting in their exertion. It reflects the mood of the people. And the mood has been changing pretty fast. Just 6 months back, we were virtually out of the race. Or people were saying they are just fighting for the bronze medal. They used to say that. No longer now. The situation has changed radically, and I look forward with great optimism to the results that are going to come even in UP. In UP, in Uttaranchal, in Punjab, in Goa, the 4 assembly elections that are due in the coming 3-4 months, I look forward to these paving the way for yet another major leap forward. People ask me, someone said, why are we not able to convert our wide support that we have in the country into votes. And someone may say that it is because we are not so obsessed with vote bank politics as some of our adversaries are. But I don't confine myself to that. Despite our not being obsessed by vote bank politics, it is only the BJP that has been able to transform the polity of India. India's politics for 5 decades, 4.5 decades certainly, was unipolar. The Congress party ruled not only in New Delhi, but almost in all other states. So much so that till some time back, no non-Congress party could get in the Lok Sabha even 54 seats, which are required to make it a recognized opposition party, and so that its leader becomes the leader of the opposition. Till some time back, this was the situation. And it is the BJP which in the last 1.5 decades has converted India's unipolar polity into a bipolar polity. Today it is the Congress party and the BJP who are the two stable poles of Indian politics. Today it's the Congress party which may be ruling. Today we may have lost the 2004 elections, but not many people are aware. What was the performance of these two parties, principal parties? The Congress party got 145 seats in the Lok Sabha. We got 138 seats in the Lok Sabha. Just 7 seats less. But it's true that we lost. And they have formed a government because of the support that they have from a party which in the past never would support them. The communist parties could support a rebel from the Congress party like VP Singh, but not the Congress party, not Rajiv Gandhi. Today they have supported them. And what's the result? A preposterous alliance has been formed. What kind of alliance? This is the month of January. And last month, only last month, in the month of December, the communist parties, the leftist parties, called for a national Bandh in the country. Why? Against what? Against the anti-poor, anti-Kisan policies of the UPA government. They are part of the UPA government. And they call for a Bandh in the country against the anti-poor, anti-Kisan policies of the UPA government. They did it. It's a different matter that outside West Bengal and Kerala, the Bandh did not have any effect. It's a different matter. But it's hypocrisy of the world, worst order, worst kind, hypocrisy. What is all right in Calcutta is wrong in New Delhi. It's amazing. Nowadays, more and more people are flying planes. To some extent, affluence is responsible. To some extent, also the fact that those who earlier traveled by train and wanted to go by first class or first AC, the difference is not much nowadays because of too many airlines. So many airlines have come who offer so many concessions. The plane starts from Chennai in time, but you can't be sure that it will land in Delhi in time. Because for 1 hour it may be hovering over the airport. There is no place to land. There is no runway available. I have myself traveled, and I ask the pilot always, how many in the row, how many in the queue, and they tell me ours is the 21st. And this situation is essentially because they cannot agree to expanding the airports. They keep pressing that Calcutta airport should be expanded. It's a strange situation. The NDA, one of its biggest achievements was that we showed how an able leadership And a good party, which is the first party, can ensure that a multi-party coalition also can be managed, run properly. And if there are people who do wrong, so we do not plead like the present Prime Minister, kya karun, compulsions hai. Tainted ministers, the first issue that was raised in Parliament, on that he always used to say, kya karun, main to nahi chahta hu, lekin kya karun. क्या करूं? उनको कह दो वो पार्टी जो है उसके पास अभी भी 25 लोग हैं, 30 लोग हैं, इनको मैं नहीं लूंगा, इनका बैकग्राउंड क्रिमिनल है, इनके ऊपर किडनैपिंग का, मर्डर का इसका चार्ज है, मैं नहीं लूंगा, कह दो, दूसरा देना पड़ेगा। नहीं, वो कहता है मैं छोड़ दूंगा। And what kind of situation? And today, in our case, one minister came under a cloud. Immediately he had to leave. He crossed over to the other side. Let him go. This is how the NDA government was run. And I believe what I said during that 97 Rath Yatra of mine, that in 1947 India became independent because of the sacrifices of leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, because of the sacrifices of revolutionaries like Bhagat Singh and Savarkar and Ashfaqullah Khan, because of the endeavors of leaders like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who formed the INA abroad. But the persons who held responsibility, Swaraj came, that Swaraj could not be converted into Suraj. Self-government could not be converted into good government. And therefore it is that since 97, the Bharatiya Janata Party has been exerting its utmost to see that wherever we come to power, in a corporation, in a municipality, in panchayats, in a state government, or at the center, wherever we come to power, we exert to give to the people Suraj, good governance. This is our effort. And I must say that today it is some 5 governments where, whereas this government, UPA government, it has been obsessed with one thing. Ever since it came to power, its obsession has been, someone told the leadership that the Congress party has gone down principally because it has lost the support of the Muslim electorate. And therefore, efforts should be made to get back the support of the Muslim electorate. Started with Andhra, reservations for Muslims. Court struck it down. Appealed, court struck it down again. Aligarh Muslim University and reservations for Muslims, 50% must be Muslims. Court struck it down again. IMDT Act, court struck it down. Court has been again and again striking down all measures which seem ultimately aimed at reservation for the Muslim community, something that the Constitution has barred. And so it is that lately there was a lot of talk that after all we have in the Constitution itself a device created by our earlier people, which is known as the 9th schedule. Even if they strike down this reservation for Muslims, if we bring it in the 9th schedule, we will be saved. And that would be one way whereby our main objective of proceeding in this direction, having a Sachar committee formed, or having the army being told that give us a head count of the communal representation in the army. All these efforts are aimed at one point. That can be achieved despite the fact that it is unconstitutional by incorporating it in the 9th schedule. And therefore it is that when 3 days back the Supreme Court gave this landmark judgment that you cannot insert anything into the 9th schedule and thereby think that it goes beyond judicial review. Nothing is beyond judicial review except the laws that have been framed before 1973. That's all. And my party welcomed it. And I don't think that the concern that is being expressed here about more than 50% being reserved, etc., has anything to do with this. Maybe, I do not know, it will be for the court to judge. Because when someone asked me, I said, suppose in a state like Arunachal, more than 70% of the population there is tribal. Naturally, there will be reservation. And that is, the 50% bar is not part of the constitution. 50% is not part of the constitution. What has been said about the 9th schedule by the Supreme Court 3 days back, as far as I can understand, is related to matters which have been expressly barred by the constitution or by the Constituent Assembly. And in fact, I told the journalist just now that let the Congress party recall what Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru had said about this proposal for communal representation. He said it would not only be a folly, it would be a disaster. These are the words Pandit Nehru used. Let them not forget it. Friends, my party has always upheld the principle of legally sanctioned affirmative action. I am not against those Dalits, scheduled tribes. If they had not been given reservation as they have been given, they would have been absolutely out of the pale of all. They would have had no power whatsoever. It's this country's ingenuity that we thought of that. And we even extended the 10 years period that Dr. Ambedkar had kept. And we have extended it, no problem about that. That has nothing to do with this. Lastly, I would like to refer to what has been said about Afzal. I was in Parliament that day when that attack took place. And today, whenever terrorism is talked about, everyone talks about 9/11. 9/11. Understandably. It was the first time that planes had been hijacked and used as missiles against the World Trade Center, against the Pentagon, and against even the White House. The fourth plane that was hijacked, but which could not reach its target, the target was the White House. You just imagine, if that plane had reached the White House, no one would have talked of 9/11 as being an attack on the World Trade Center. 9/11 would have been associated with the attack on the White House, which is the residence of the President of America. Similarly, I say that if that very year, what happened in New Delhi on December 13th, when this terrorist attack took place on the Indian Lok Sabha, there were 5 of them who wanted to get inside Parliament House and who were equipped with all kinds of weaponry. And they had come to know, they had made inquiries, they had been informed that inside Parliament House, the security people are not allowed to carry any weapon with them. They have no weapon inside. It's only outside the Parliament, in the compound, that the security people have weapons. Having come to know this, their plan was quietly to enter. If out of 5, even 3 had entered, if even 2 had entered, the entire political leadership of the country, all the principal leaders of the party, all the ministers in the central government would have been easy target. All would have been massacred. And then perhaps no one would have talked of 9/11. After all, so far as the White House is concerned, he had already been informed that World Trade Center has been this. And so he was out of there. He was not there. I've seen that film also dealing with the 4th plane, how the passengers put in resistance, as a result of which the plane crashed somewhere else, even before it could reach White House. But 12/13, December 13th, this would have been the principal landmark in the history of terrorism in the world. After all, democracy would have been at stake at that time. And the persons who prevented it were those 10 people who died fighting them. It was rightly referred to that those people were so hurt by this campaign for clemency to Afzal that they decided that we will give up all the plaudits that have been given to us, all the medals that have been given to us. We don't want it. Our husband, our child, our brother, they have been martyred in this manner, and no one seems concerned. It's a shame, really. We feel, what kind of country are we living in, where the persons who attack Parliament and who could have destroyed Indian democracy, the court has held. Till now, what was being said, that clemency appeal is not merely because we want mercy, but because the trial was unfair. The trial was unfair. And good it is that the Afzal gave a curative petition to the Supreme Court itself. And the Supreme Court 2 days back has decided that it was a very fair trial. There was nothing unfair about it, and he should be hanged. I would urge that there should be no further delay in executing the orders of the court. We must honor the court, and we must tell the people that we are not soft towards those who try to gamble with India's integrity and gamble with India's democracy. We are not soft towards them. This is not a soft state. This is the message that needs to be conveyed. I was really shocked to hear the Home Minister say, Union Home Minister say, that the decision on this may take 6-7 years. Why? Why 6-7 years? Decide it. The court can decide it. Why can't you decide? Why can't the government decide? But all these things put together, as I said in the beginning, clearly show that this government is not capable of dealing with these two principal problems. One before the common man of rising prices, and the other before the whole country, namely of internal security. Friends, I think I have tried to cover most of the points, but as I said in the beginning, I'm right, you may have cheered me several times, but there was no humor, no wit whatsoever. I did not give you single anecdote which could have evoked in you a kind of response which would make me think that no, I have improved slightly. Anyway, thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much, sir. திரு அத்வானி அவர்களுக்கு உங்கள் அனைவர் சார்பிலும் மனமார்ந்த நன்றிகளை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். வழக்கம் போல தேசிய கீதம் எல்லோரும் சேர்ந்து இசைக்குமாறு கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறேன். நீலு வரட்டும், நான் பாண்டேன்னா முதல்ல பாண்டேன், அந்த மாதிரி தான் இருக்கும். அதனால் வரட்டும். அத்வானி அவர்கள் என்ன சொல்லியிருக்காருன்னா, சுருக்கமாக சொல்லிடுறேன், டிரான்ஸ்லேஷன் இல்லை, சுருக்கமாக சொல்லிடுறேன். சோ ஒரு விதூஷகன், நான் அப்படி இல்லை, நிர்வாகின்னு சொல்லியிருக்கேன். அவ்வளோ, வேற ஒன்றும் இல்லை.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात